you ready?
Always, mate.
You ready, Carl?
I've been here for
Good.
longer than you have.
I mean, that's true, but, I lost track of time. I'm bad at this. But, welcome everybody to another episode where I apparently can't talk.
I'm good at this.
I'm
Says
very good at
Lucas.
this. Welcome to another episode of the Wiki Weekdays podcast, where we wind up a wiki, take a dive in, keep swimming until we find something fun to talk about.
Yes.
I'm your host for this week's episode, Lucas Holland, and as always, it brings me great pleasure to introduce my lovely co-host for the week, Karl Smallwood.
Hello.
I say for the week as if, like, it wasn't just all of the time. Karl is here every time with me.
You know, if 1 week, like, just one of us wasn't here and we try to do the episode on our own, so it's like,
God.
so,
Like,
fellas,
we didn't even try and, like, ask someone to come in to cover.
so let's just go through one of these wikis entirely on our own for no reason.
Oh, for anyone new here, Karl and I are both here to bring a wiki page each of our choosing, to hopefully have a fun discussion with.
Yes.
And it is your job as listeners to decide which wiki won each week. Which
one won last week?
I'm getting to that, Karl.
Oh,
I've got that in my intro. I've got it in my little paragraph.
Okay, I was just playing Tekken earlier. I didn't bother checking this.
You can officially vote for that by joining our community Discord, the link to which you can find in the description below. So, Karl, which wiki won last week? Do you have an inkling it was Monopoly versus Pepsi Man?
It's got to be Pepsi Man, right?
Nah, Monopoly won, man.
Was it not Pepsi Man?
Everyone clearly was too in on you just getting, like, mad at landlords and just, like,
That's
the seething
fair.
rage.
Which is the gimmick of which wiki won this week. It's not necessarily the topic that you're most interested in, but the one that you think elicits the most interesting discussion, which is, I think, the beauty of this format of, even if it's something that you might not be familiar with, the beauty of a wiki is that it will give you a broad overview of it anyway. But then also you get the discussion that might arise for something you're not familiar with, or, like, something on the wiki entry that just procs one of those, like, things in your brain of, like, yeah, okay, that reminded me of something else.
Yeah, and I was just double checking that we are live because my stream manager was like, an error has occurred. I was like, no, we are live. It's okay.
I do like when random errors occur. It always makes me feel great.
But yeah, as you can guess from that statement, we are streaming this episode live. So if you are here live in the live chat, then please just leave a like to help more people find the show while we are currently live.
I can't believe that's a thing. That is pretty funny that you have to, like, actively interact with it while it's live and it'll pop up in more people's views.
Yeah, it, like, literally means that while you're live, it comes up higher in people's suggestions. It's a very, very weird algorithm thing that we have to just ask our lovely viewers to do for us.
YouTube being opaque and difficult to work with. Say it ain't sound.
And if there are any super chats made during the show, Karl and I will be sure to read them out loud before the end of the podcast. So if you'd like to have your own personal say, then you can do it that way. And if you're watching later on YouTube, remember to give us the good old like and subscribe jazz.
Yeah,
we've got to do all this. I'm sorry.
We do. Maybe we can find a way to make it more interesting.
Well,
like, try and do it as quick as you can.
I can't. I've got the nice, like, I've got my nice reading voice on. I've got my nice written out paragraphs, Karl. But
God, I think my camera froze.
It did freeze, and while
did it? Wait, are we back? There we go.
There we go.
Oh wait, it's frozen again.
Oh no! It's like Karl's fully gone. So while Karl's fully dead,
go on, Lucas. Just riff.
Remember that you can find us on most podcast services by simply searching for the Wiki Weekdays podcast. If you're enjoying the show that way, feel free to give us a swell review if you feel like we've earned it. You can also find both Karl and I in other places on the internet, but we'll talk more about that later. Karl, what have you brought for us this week? Can you sit back down? Oh no, his camera's gone again. Oh no, it's fully gone again.
My camera's having a mare today.
Let's see what these wikis are. Well, for anyone who has seen the thumbnail for this podcast prior to joining in, you will be aware.
Lucas, I need to go check something because my computer's doing the diddling. I'm
riffing while you go and sort things. Go. Yes, for anyone that, has given a little preview of the thumbnail beforehand, one of the things that I'm personally going to be talking about is something that just had reviews drop right today, so we're right on topic, and that would be that we are going to be talking about a certain game called Stellar Blade. And if you're not familiar with that, we will be talking about that after the break. But the first wiki that we do each week is brought to you by the person who doesn't do the intro. So the Karl's first surprise wiki will be coming in a moment. But, you know, as I say, at the moment, Karl's experiencing some technical difficulties. So I'm just trying to do my best to riff until I see a Karl appear back on camera again.
Right, you know what, mate? I'm gonna. Oh, fuck's sake!
Oh no!
Right? Joe, it's because Joe, the noise of budlun, dun 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 budlun that your computer makes when like a USB is not connected properly. It is doing that in my ear, overlapping constantly.
Oh no!
So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna unplug my camera and put my webcam in, which is worse, but it'll do. But just. Lucas,
it's better than this at the moment of just seeing the webcam utility.
For one more second.
I'm going to have to keep riffing, so I hope everyone in chat is doing well. As I say, just trying to give us a little likes up for just like the support of, if we get enough likes, maybe Karl's camera will be sorted. Maybe you can like send, you know, the likes and raise up your hands and send him the energy for this like webcam spirit bomb.
Wait. And there we go. Okay.
There we go. So
it's not the best.
You know what though, Karl? It's better than just seeing EOS webcam utility the entire time.
There's no wrong with a bit of EOS webcam utility. That's fine.
So I have done my very best to just keep continually riffing. We hopefully have Karl back now.
Should we just sack it off and go home?
We were already home. We are streaming from home, Karl.
Yeah.
Oh god, Karl, your camera's frozen again.
No, it hasn't. I'm just sat still.
No, I was joking.
Okay, I thought it was because I was just sat really still.
I was just trying to send you into a panic. But Karl, which wiki have you brought for us this week?
So you've done all the riffing. Like people could presumably tell that you're going to be talking about like
I've mentioned
giant
it,
slappable asses. So I thought, in the spirit of like the discussions of, I'm gonna have to turn one of my lights off. I'm sorry.
Karl, he's just abandoned me for like the entire episode.
There we go. Oh, God,
you know earlier when you joked about like doing an episode on your own? That's how I feel right now. Of just like Karl's just leaving me.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. It's because I can't. There we go. Fucking right. So I thought, in the spirit of like discussing great character designs and female characters in general, I thought I want to bring in some of the best characters of the female persuasion I'm aware of, the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, okay.
It don't get much better than the Powerpuff Girls, does it?
Yeah, a show that I remember really enjoying as a kid, and it was one of those weird things of like, I'd watch it, but then the moment one of like my male friends at school found out I watched it, it was, you're not allowed to watch Powerpuff Girls, like it's not for you.
Yeah. And then you get older and you realise, no, actually the Powerpuff Girls whips all kinds of ass. Which actually goes back to the origins of the characters. Because are you aware of a bit of trivia everyone knows about the Powerpuff Girls, their original name?
I don't think so.
Their original name was the Whoop-Ass Girls.
Oh, right, okay.
They were originally called the Whoop-Ass Girls. That was deemed to be too aggressive. But, for anyone unfamiliar with the Powerpuff Girls, we are on the Powerpuff Girls wiki, and we have just simply the narrator's end tagline as the opening of the wiki. And so once again, the day is saved thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. And they always did save the day.
Yeah. And I think it was always Monster of the Week style. There wasn't any overarching plot where it's like, come back next episode and the day might be saved. It's just
like, yeah, it is not only is it just a genuinely fantastic show, that's like the superhero genre, it is a deconstruction of the genre, and also it's just really, really well done because it has it has that sense of humor that is just so difficult to get right of. Kids can watch it because you get dumb slapstick and interesting characters, but adults can watch it because you just have genuinely well-crafted jokes. Like you have the Powerpuff Girls. Lucas, how were the Powerpuff Girls made? You must know, right?
They were made with sugar, spice, and everything nice. But then I was about to say Professor X. I can't remember the professor's name, but it's not Professor X.
Utonium.
He is stirring the pot and accidentally hits Chemical X, is it? And
It's
it
chemical X,
spills
yes.
into the mixture, and the cauldron of sugar, spice, everything nice, and chemical X gives birth to the 3 Powerpuff Girls.
Yes, and you have that amazing episode people always single out as, how did this joke make it into the show? Where it's like the Powerpuff Girls make a friend. And it's like, oh, are you their daddy? And he's like, yeah, I'm the daddy. And it's like, do they have a mummy? And it's like, there's no mummy, they were made in an accident. And the little girl says, don't worry, I'm an accident too. And just Professor Utonium's like, the fuck do I say to this small child?
Oh, dear.
The Powerpuff Girls are a trio of artificially made superhuman kindergartners created by Professor Utonium. They are the title characters of the Cartoon Network series of the same name, the 2016 reboot of the same name, and the anime Powerpuff Girls Z.
There's an anime?
Are you aware that the Powerpuff Girls got an anime adaptation?
Well, I am now.
And it's all right. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
They also got a ill-fated live-action reboot that got cancelled because it was real fucking bad.
Yeah, no, that doesn't need to exist.
And part of the reason why it was so bad is because it was. Do you remember that era? Like, it's still ongoing to this day. Like, you got like the Velma show coming out soon. Where it's like, let's take this beloved franchise, and do you know what we should do? Just make fun of it. We're going to use the name to sell the product, but then we're going to deconstruct it and talk about how shit it is. And basically, it's like the Powerpuff Girls are all grown up, and it's like Professor Utonium turns out was like an abusive dad who hauled them out for like celebrity.
Oh, God. God damn it. That's just like... Yeah, again, why would you like take it out back and basically shoot it and prod fun at it?
But it's that thing of, we're going to use the brand to sell it, but then the writers are like, you know what we're going to do, though? We're going to make fun of it.
Yeah, you know what was really shit? This thing that we're getting all our viewership from.
Yeah, do you know what's really shit? The Powerpuff Girls. Then why are you making a Powerpuff Girls live-action show? Anyway, so that's not mentioned on the Powerpuff Girls wiki for obvious reasons. So, the members are Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, of course. And which was your favourite member of the crew?
Oh, Buttercup.
I was a fan of Buttercup, but I also like Bubbles because that's where a lot of the humour came from.
Yeah, a lot of the humour was definitely from Bubbles, but I really enjoyed, like, you know, the kind of tomboyish can-do attitude of Buttercup of, I'm just going to punch it.
Yeah, and the thing that people will probably realise is, you said they're made of, like, you know, sugar, spice, and everything nice. Sugar, that's Bubbles, like the sickly sweet one. Buttercup is spice. You know, the quite the aggressive one. Everything nice is Blossom.
Right, fair.
Each of the 3 ingredients are what make them. Because that's like one of those cool. It's like, oh yeah, sugar, sickly sweet, spice, like the aggressive hothead, spice, and then everything nice is Blossom, because that's why she's such a consummate leader.
And it is one of those where, like, I feel like no one's favorite is Blossom because she's just like the straight man of the crew.
It's like no one's favorite X-Men is Cyclops.
Oh, there were only a couple of Cyclops fans.
X-Men 97, where he's like fucking grinding around on his own eye legs. It's like an absolute don.
Yeah, apparently, like, he's really awesome in X-Men 97.
He really is. And when that show's like finished coming out, I'll be watching that in one go. But we have here the nicknames of the Powerpuff Girls, so they're various aliases, because superheroes got to have aliases, Lucas. So they are known simply as the girls, the Powderpuff Girls, that's the narrator in major competition, and Lex Luthor, because they had a crossover on with the Justice League.
Oh, wow.
For a promo.
Okay.
Remember when like there was Justice League on Cartoon Network? They had a crossover where the Powerpuff Girls met the Justice League. They're also known as the Big Sissies by the Rowdy Rough Boys, the Dumb Girls, Powerless Girls by Mojo Jojo, Stupid Wimpy Lamo Girls, the Sugar Puffs, Pickle Cart Killers, and then simply the Little Angels by their father, Professor Utonium, who in the live-action version just used them for monetary gain.
Of course.
Yeah, even though, like, you know, he's just nothing but the most loving dad ever. Like, he's like one of the strongest male role models in like a cartoon.
Yeah,
because he's just complete and utter just dedication to his daughters.
Just caring, supportive father.
And that's when you have, like, again, those shows that are really great for adults and kids. I remember there's that episode where it's him saying goodnight to his girls, and he puts them to bed, and then as soon as he shuts the door, he immediately just gets like crushingly depressed because he's so lonely.
That's so sad.
Because he's a single dad.
Yeah.
And that's the episode where the Powerpuff Girls try and get him laid.
Oh, fair.
Well, just the idea that they show it he's a single dad.
Yeah. And, like, was his experiment before the Chemical X mistake to make girls, like, to create children? Did he want children?
I think he was trying to make a child, and then there's, like, backstory that he made Mojo Jojo.
Oh, shit, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact backstory there, but yeah, isn't it interesting that the show, like, he's just a single dad, and it's never mentioned. Except for that one episode where they bring it up, and he's like, it'd be nice to have some adult companionship, but my number one priority is my daughters. Which is a pretty adult concept, right?
That's like a lot of kids' shows, though, right? Is that kind of the parents are not the focus, or just straight up don't exist?
Oh, you've got like a lot of Cartoon Network shows, like Cow and Chicken. The parents are literal legs.
Yes, exactly.
Like the parents don't exist, and like shows with strong parental figures in them generally do quite well. I know we've got a mutual friend who's a big fan of Bluey because he's got a kid, and he's like, Bluey's so good. Bluey's just such a good show because the dad in it's just so relatable.
So I was literally just listening to a Kind of Funny podcast where they were talking about Bluey, and I have been told that it's got, like, listening, not been told personally, but just listening, it was like, oh, it just had like an Avengers Endgame level moment where like a half-hour episode came out.
Yeah, and they had a lot of crossovers, and like they have like references to like the earlier seasons and stuff. It's crazy.
And yeah, apparently just Bluey is one of the best things just
it's
for
such
kids
a good
and
show.
adults, and apparently it's also like 20% of all watch time on Disney Plus or something is just Bluey.
It's really good. It's one of Australia's greatest exports, alongside Hugh Jackman.
It's one of Disney's smartest fucking money moves in a long time.
But that's the thing, like, to make a good children's show, that's like one of the things that's really important to making one. It's like it has to be able to watch by adults, and for that you have to sometimes deal with adult themes, but in a way that's suitable for children. Yeah. And that's an episode that's always stuck in my mind, where the one where it's just like, it shows that Professor Utonium is really lonely, but he never lets his daughters see that because he doesn't want to upset them. Then his daughters say, like, we understand. And that's a nice wholesome message alongside some like whoop-ass action. Then we have the appearance.
Ooh. Well, I was going to say, he's like the super dad to them being superheroes, right? He's just super in a different way.
He is. Everyone can be super. And then we have their appearance. So the Powerpuff Girls are drawn almost completely out of round and soft shapes. The sole exception being Buttercup, who has sharp edges in her design, which is just a hint towards her personality, because in character design, soft, round shapes are usually used to convey cuteness or innocence, whereas sharp, angular characters are more aggressive or angry. Not always, but that's the general rule of thumb.
It is a good rule of thumb, yes. And the fact that Buttercup has just elements, like I think the ends of her hair are spiky and stuff like that. It's like just a little bit. She's still very cutesy and sweet and adorable, but there's that little element.
Yes. And it mentions here that they have large eyes, oval-shaped heads, stubby arms and legs, and although they're able to hear, smell, touch, and hold, they have no necks, noses, ears, fingers, or toes, which is often joked about and lampshaded during the show.
Right. And yeah, obviously anyone who is familiar with how the Powerpuff Girls look, so it looks very familiar to another Cartoon Network show.
Which is?
Samurai Jack, right?
Yes, because I believe...
They're the same creator.
Is it Genda Tartakovsky? Because it says like the creator of the idea, but not the animator. I'll just double check. Because obviously this doesn't mention it, so I'll put in... Is it Genda Tartakovsky? Oh yeah, is it Powerpuff Girls? He was... Genndy Tartakovsky. Yeah, he was the storyboard artist, because it says here the creator of the Powerpuff Girls, like in our world, is Craig McCracken.
Right.
Well, the animator was Genndy Tartakovsky, who is known for doing Samurai Jack, as you said. And you can see that the design for Samurai Jack looks almost identical to Professor Utonium, which led to fan theories that he's just Professor Utonium from the past. Which makes it weird because Samurai Jack is Japanese and Professor Utonium is white.
Yeah, it's like they're definitely not the same character. They just have some similar elements in design because they were drawn by the same person.
Yeah. Also, we can't not mention Dexter's Lab. Like Dexter's Lab, I think is Genndy Tartakovsky's that's his magnum opus. Dexter's Lab was so fucking good.
And then obviously we've already talked about in the past, like the is it the Clone Wars or was it just Clone Wars? I can't remember which
Whatever it is, it was the best Star Wars media put out and still is. And that one shot of that single clone trooper fighting off the super battle droids is still like the absolute best thing in Star Wars.
And yeah, just like that man has just like an amazing legacy of different shows that he worked on. I didn't realize that he was just like I thought he might have been the creator of
No, the
Powerpuff Girls,
writer
but
was Craig McCracken. He was like the storyboard artist, and like
yeah.
that style is so just intrinsically linked with like that Cartoon Network of that era. So I said Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, and Dexter's Lab. Because I say Dexter's Lab is so fucking strong, and Dexter is actually based a little bit on Gendy Tartakovsky. Do you like his weird accent, like his weird Russian accent that no one else has?
Yes,
That's what Gendy Tartakovsky taught like when he was a child.
The one thing I never liked about Dexter's Lab was being compared to Dexter when I was a kid, because I was like short, had red hair and glasses, and was like not anything like Dexter. He's like a horrible person.
No, he tries, and like Dexter's Lab also has some absolutely fucking top tier moments. And I was debating picking Dexter's Lab, but I said no, I'll save that for an episode where I could put clips in, because one of my favorite episodes of any show is the Dexter's Lab episode where they just have Abe Lincoln fight fucking George Washington. Do you remember? Yeah, like because he goes to the Mount Rushmore, and they bring out Abe Lincoln, and he puts a rocket in Abe Lincoln's hat.
Yeah, is that the episode where like fighting in giant mechs or something?
Yeah, they turn Abe Lincoln and George Washington into giant mech suits.
Yeah. That's the memories like vaguely somewhere back in the very back of my brain, but
or like the piss take show they have within like the show of Action Hank.
Yeah,
and he's like the GI Joe, and it's like where Dexter gets the beard. It's like it's not the beard on the outside; it's the beard on the inside. It's like thanks, Action Hank. Oh, speaking of, it's not the beard on the outside; it's the beard on the inside. Like about being confident and like exuding confidence despite your outward appearance. The Powerpuff Girls stand at 2'3" tall.
Wow. Okay.
It's all of 2'3" of them.
God. Yeah, even Mojo Jojo's got the height advantage.
It says that whether they actually possess the aforementioned features is not actually clear. For example, in Crisscross Crisis, when the girls switch bodies with other people in Townsville, Buttercup, who'd swapped bodies with Professor Utonium, complains that her hands did not work when trying to pick up the phone. Meaning that the girl's fingerless hands could pick things up at will. However, in the same episode, Bubbles in the mayor's body is seen using a toothbrush without trouble. The characters who are in the girls' bodies also have no issues holding objects, so it's probably just like a joke.
Yeah.
Also, you have in the episode Curses, all three of the girls play rock, paper, scissors and can apparently distinguish who chose what. And that's another great visual gag. They play rock, paper, scissors, and they're little like just poorly drawn like nub hands, and they all land and they'll go, "Okay, we win." Just a fantastic visual joke.
Yeah, and it was funny because I just was like trying to remind myself of some of the characters in the show. Just googled the characters, and just some of the names of some of these characters of like Abracadabra, of like the presumably magician corpse, and just someone called Mask Scarer, like Mask Scarer.
Yeah. Well, they have another great episode, Joe. Speaking of like female empowerment, do you have like the villain who's like the feminist? That's actually a legitimately fantastic episode with a really great message.
Which one?
You'll know when you see it.
You mean
got
him?
The villains. It's not him. No, that's like the weird devil lobster man who's terrifying.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if that's what you were talking about.
See if you can find her.
I'm not sure.
I'll Google it. We'll find her.
Yeah.
Femme Fatale.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. A lot of these, when I just Googled it, didn't have like pictures on them.
Yeah. So Femme Fatale is like a one-off villain in the show. And that episode is actually genuinely fantastic. And it has a really great message of female empowerment.
Yeah. Because when I said him, I was like, I don't think this is like the best female empowerment. Are you confusing this with another character? But I was.
No. So Femme Fatale, like the arc of that show is she breaks into banks. She's a bank robber, but she only steals Susan B. Anthony coins because she wants to steal the only American currency that has a woman on it.
Oh, okay.
And she's actually able to win over the Powerpuff Girls to her side for a little bit because she says like, well, why? Who do you listen to? It's like, well, our dad. You listen to a man? Why'd you listen to him? You're stronger than him, right?
Hmm.
And she like warps like the idea of like feminism to encourage the girls. Like, not, I think the mayor calls them up when they don't listen to him.
Oh, because she's convinced them, like, don't let men tell you what to do.
Yeah, and like she convinces the Powerpuff Girls to let her go because that's what you should do it for women. You should do it for women.
It's like, I understand the message of, like, don't let men rule your life, but she's using it in a villainous way to get what she wants.
Yes, and then the end of the episode is actually this great little speech from the Powerpuff Girls where they actually say, we looked up the person on the coin, Susan B. Anthony. She was a suffragette, and she was like arrested for trying to vote. And when, like, the courts told them that they'd let her off because she's a woman, she insisted on being, being sent to jail because that's what would happen to a man. That's what equality is. And then Femme Fatale's like, so what does that mean? And then the Powerpuff Girls beat her up.
I'm like, you also deserve to go to jail. That's what that means.
But isn't that like that's a really good message for like a kids show?
Yeah,
and if as well, if you made that today, weirdos on Twitter would absolutely lose their fucking minds. Like they would be like they made it go woke, and it's like it's a show that entirely centers around superpowered little girls.
Yes, literally empowering little girls.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I think they wrote that episode specifically to address some of the issues because people are like, why do they listen to a man? So I think they put that in and like, well, the girls first will listen to their dad because he's fundamentally like a good person.
It's not specifically that they just listen to men and like men control them. It's that no, they are good daughters and they have a good dad and he's trying to give them good advice and they listen to that advice. Yeah,
and I think that's as well where it's like Miss Bellossom. I think it is like the mayor's assistant, the super stacked redhead,
right?
Who's the assistant? I think she's the one who sets the girls straight. And that's just like another great character in the show, like that, which is a pretty common trope of like the hyper competent secretary.
Yes, yeah, with like the incompetent mayor that doesn't know what he's doing, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a stereotype there, but I always did like that character.
Yeah, and
but I had to mention that villain because I remember that episode being one that I always laughed at.
Is that legit a thing of like there is one element of currency with a woman on it in America?
Yes, Susan B. Anthony. It's the Susan B. Anthony dollar. There might be another one. They did try and put Harriet Tubman on the 20.
Right, yeah.
But that didn't go through because you can't put a black woman on the $20 note, Lucas, because, again, weirdos will complain.
Oh, right. I thought you had, like, a legit thing
to say. No.
I was like, wait, why? Why? What? Yeah, because people are knowledge, yeah.
It does feel a bit weird, though, doesn't it? Because we had the Queen on our money for, 70 years straight?
Yeah. No, it's like, I'm so glad that I went basically cashless a while ago. But I don't have to see that prick's face on my money.
Yeah, we also have the likes and dislikes of the Powerpuff Girls here. And I was like, they're just a group. All the likes are the same, even though they've all got individual personalities. And that's the thing that's worth noticing is all the Powerpuff Girls adhere to the Ninja Turtles rule. Are you familiar at all with the Ninja Turtles rule? It's an informal rule of character creation.
Just what, that they each have like a specific piece of like imagery and color set and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's like if you create a bunch of characters who are almost visually identical, you have to differentiate them personality-wise by giving them one thing that they like. As I said, like, so Bubbles is the sweet, cute one. Blossom is the competent leader. Buttercup is like, the tomboy.
Yeah, and then obviously each of them identify and only ever dress in one color.
Yep. Which is it's informally known as the Ninja Turtles rule, which is where characters who otherwise would be identical have something that differentiates them that people watching the show can glob onto.
I mean, it makes sense because when the like more 90s Turtles came out, they were all literally identical apart from the weapon they used, the color that they wore, and like the one gimmicky thing that they liked.
Yeah. And in the original comics that they hail from, they didn't even have color differences.
Yeah, it was a black and white comic, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
obviously
But
nowadays the turtles are like Raph is like the big turtle and stuff like that in
Yep.
some of them, but yeah.
They each have a defined personality, but we have here their likes and dislikes: the city of Townsville, Professor Utonium, Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, their teacher Mrs. Keene, or Ms. Keene, I should say, which is another one where it's like Ms. Keene, so that means she's divorced. But also, I think Ms. Keene as well is another great like guiding figure in the girls' life. And I think she might be the one alongside Miss Bellum who teaches them about Susan B. Anthony and what it
Right,
means to be a
yes.
woman. Just what a nice thing to put in a little show aimed at little girls, but also like boys as well.
Yeah, I
Because
think
it's a
that's
show
a
everyone
really
can enjoy.
it's a really good way to have that discussion of like, yeah, there are, kids watching it. Obviously primarily would have been girls watching, but again, I watched it as a kid. But just the fact that it's teaching you, hey, maybe think about like what patriarchy is,
Mhm.
but also don't just treat all women as if they're better or can get away with things. Like equality is what matters.
Yeah, and it's the thing that's generally one of the beneficial things about children's media. It presents these quite complex ideas in an easily digestible way to encourage curiosity in children and younger people.
Yeah.
Or if you're like a weird adult grown man, make you yell and froth on the internet.
Yeah. And like, we mentioned Bluey earlier, like I know that they go into really heavy subjects of like
Yep.
divorce and miscarriage and stuff like that, and it's all boiled down into like 8-minute long episodes that
Yep.
can talk to kids on a good level.
Or you go back to the classics like Mr. Rogers. Like Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers specifically left instructions for how they could deal with his death because he didn't want the network to shy away from acknowledging that he died. Because
Right,
he,
yeah.
he believed that children had the capacity to understand the concept, but it had to be presented to in a way that they could, like, get through.
Yeah.
Or like, Sesame Street. Like they had an entire episode like about like, a character whose like parent was in jail
Yes, yeah.
and stuff like that. Like just
And
and again,
never forget as well, Carl, you've got to always remember Sonic says.
Sonic says, like, if an adult touches you in a place where you're not comfortable, that's no good.
Just I always enjoy like the Sonic says things of just, oh, like here's like a 20-minute kids Saturday morning cartoon, and then you've got like, well, now kids, at the end of the show we've got to do the Sonic says segment, so you learn what today's episode was about.
Did you ever like hear as well why that's a thing in America?
So
Is because to like you couldn't just have a show for children that was purely entertainment.
it had to have some element
It
of
had to have
education.
some positive reinforcement, and that's where He-Man. Do you know, like He-Man was literally just to sell toys.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of each episode, it's like, and remember, children, just because you're strong doesn't mean you should use that strength to hurt others. You should use it to help.
Right.
That's why you had He-Man saying stuff like that, because otherwise it would have literally zero educational value, and as such, it couldn't be aired on TV.
That's kind of cool that they've got that in place, because
And
look at like what fucking kids YouTube is. They're just horrific dredges of the world.
yeah, and isn't it nice that like by law it has to contain? It's like people complain about because people do complain about it. So obviously, how dare you teach my children to be tolerant and celebrate diversity? But it's like people who rally against like putting signs on food that's unhealthy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just making you more aware and informed of the world in which you live.
But
Because otherwise, you'd have a billion-dollar corporation versus a 4-year-old's brain. And who's going to win?
People don't like being reminded that cake is bad for you while they're eating cake, though, Carl.
Yeah, but then we have just the likes and dislikes, as I mentioned. Miss Keene, the mayor of Townsville, Miss Bellum, Candy, April, the multiplex, fighting crime, though it does depend on the type of crime. Music and dancing, playing together, specifically the game tag is one of their favourites, and each other, of course, because they are sisters and they love each other. Their dislikes are supervillains, being sunburned, failing to save the day, silent movies, probably like kids that if it's not like got colour and stuff on it, shrimp, being called brats, being called the Powder Puff Girls, losing their superpowers, and liver and onions.
I would also dislike if I was a superhero losing my superpowers. That would kind
Yeah.
of suck.
I do like that though. Of the likes and dislikes are like saving the day, being heroes, but then more relatable things like they don't like liver and onions.
Hmm.
I think everyone watching at home as a kid can relate to that thing that your parents like eat it up. It's good for you. Like how many shows deal with the whole like eat your broccoli.
I was gonna say like liver and onions wouldn't have really like been a thing that I'd experienced as a kid, but
I did.
say for example, like if it was a British show, it would have been Sprouts.
And here's the thing: have you ever like actually heard the breakdown of why sprouts and stuff are terrible for children?
No.
So effectively, you are born with a finite amount of taste buds. Some people have more,
Yeah.
some people have less. That's why you have super tasters. But essentially, just as you get older, your taste buds just die.
And that's why people tend to like stronger and more bitter flavors as you get older, right?
Yeah, so like, and it's also kind of hilarious because you'll find like, do you know when you have like an old person say, "Oh, young people they just drink like Copperbergs and fruity ciders. It's like they can't appreciate whiskey." And you might even remember anyone listening at home taking a sip of like your dad's beer or like, a cup of coffee, and it tastes really awful and bitter. And now you're older, it doesn't taste as bitter. That's because it literally isn't, because you literally do not have as many taste buds with which to taste the bitterness. And bitterness and like sour and stuff being one of the strongest flavor profiles is really overpowering. And that's why vegetables taste so bad to children, because they can taste so much more of the bitterness that's in them. Same with like coffee and beer and whiskey and spicy foods.
I mean, yeah, that's like how my mum got around us eating and liking vegetables was she would like boil them with sugar in the water
Yep.
so that it tries and counteracts that bitterness and makes it a bit sweeter, which did work because we all really enjoyed veg when we got older.
Hey, that's who's that now? It's Mary Poppins, right? Spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Mm-hmm.
It's been well known. So, and then we have the names of the girls in different languages. 'Cause sometimes these can be kind of fun.
I mean, yeah,
And
go
I'm
for
going
it,
to
yeah.
butcher some pronunciations here. So in France, the names of the Powerpuff Girls are Belle, beautiful for Blossom, Bully, for Bubble for Bubbles, and Rebel for Buttercup, which is a bit more.
It's a bit more on the nose, but still fitting, yeah.
Yeah, but it sticks. I actually prefer, because that's like BBB. In Italy, their names are Lolly, Dolly, and Molly.
That's just, yeah, okay. Any
In
others?
Latin America, their names are Bonbon for Blossom, Burbuja for Bubbles, and Bellotta, Acorn for Buttercup. And I'm
Okay.
butchering these pronunciations. I want to do one more. I'm going to move swiftly on. Oh, here we go. In the UK British English dub, the girls are voiced by different voice actresses.
Really?
Yeah. Their voices are so similar to their American counterparts with few differences that no one ever really noticed, which I never noticed.
I
I guess I'll
mean,
have to
we
look that
we
up.
wouldn't have been able to notice because we didn't have the comparison, right? But
Also, we're kids.
like, that's the thing. We wouldn't have ever seen an American clip to be like, "Oh, that's different."
Mhm.
So I guess
Uh,
that makes sense. But yeah, like that is very odd.
and then finally, we have a list of superpowers used by the Powerpuff Girls. And obviously, it being a cartoon, they have a new power every episode because why not? It's fun.
Wait, did they? Oh, I just kind of remember the generic ones of like flight and super strength.
But there'd always be like a power they could use to save the day.
Oh,
And that they include their standard powers are superhuman strength, speed, durability, stamina, and energy trail. That iconic, like, as they fly like the Power Rangers ship. Flight, heat vision, the ability to breathe and survive in space. Energy projection in their own respective colours, of course. Super sensors, night vision. Tornado generation, of course, in their respective colours. Fire generation in their respective colours, but this is seen in the comic books. X-ray vision, night invulnerability. Immunity to extremes of cold and heat. Supersonic screams, waves, and bursts. And sonic booms and shockwaves.
they just basically got it all. Yeah.
Yeah, like the stronger than Superman. And then abilities in the Nothing Special episode. These include teleportation, super strength punch, Inferno, the ability to spontaneously catch fire, duplicate themselves, Aquavelvi, so transforming into a puddle of water, Atomic Snot Rocket, which the less explanation, the better.
Yeah.
The Penny Pincher, which I don't know what that is, imitating the roar of a large beast, and imitating the abilities from the Matrix.
Fair enough. I mean, it's like I was gonna make the joke of like, yeah, but could they beat Goku? And the answer is normally when it comes to cartoons, yes, because they can use
Yeah.
cartoon logic.
Cartoon logic usually trumps everything.
Mm-hmm.
Never forget that the Chuck Jones, I believe it is, the guy who behind like all the Warner Bros. Stuff, not Warner Bros. Looney Tunes. When he was asked, "What do you think of Space Jam?" Man, it's like it was shit. So what do you mean? It's like Bugs Bunny would have solved it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then when you think, no, he couldn't. It's like, yes, he could. Like, think that this guy condensed a 3-hour opera into 6 minutes, then won an Oscar for it. He can solve like aliens invading the Earth in less than 5.
Without the convoluted plot of like turn it into a baseball match that bets the Earth.
Yeah, and they also have their
Did I
abilities
say
when they're
baseball,
used
basketball?
It's coming. Oh, right. Did you ever see as well? They were going to make like a skateboarding themed one called Skate Jam with Tony Hawk's.
Yeah, that would have been so good. Like, imagine just the video game of Skate Jam.
Yep.
Like, just put Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but in a cartoonified, like, Looney Tunes way.
Mm-hmm. But, finally, they have powers that they can use in tandem because they are sisters, and as a result, they can combine their already awesome power in a multitude of ways. These include, but are not limited to, the Furious Fury Feline, where they combine to create a cat of pure energy and fire. And I think that just like it's where like there's a meteorite going to hit the Earth and it plays it like a ball of string.
Oh my god! Like I vaguely remember them being able to like they summon a Megazord at one point or something, like the equivalent of but for the Powerpuff Girls. But I didn't remember that.
They have Starburst Ray, so they're just up there with the Red 13. The old Razzle Dazzle, a twister of light that can catch and move the heaviest of objects.
Yeah.
They have the Cherry Bomb, used by Blossom and Buttercup, where they do a series of Henshin-style poses like the Sentai Rangers, like,
of course.
Beautiful Joe, and a red and white energy bubble surrounds them.
I mean, this combining all these powers, they'd easily take Goku.
Easy, you ain't got a chance. But the Mega Blast Beam against like a giant enemy, it generates a huge focused beam of pure energy.
There.
They have the P-Bomb, the Power Bomb. They connect together and outlines in blue, green, and pink come out like incredibly strong hypersonic waves. And then finally, just the one that sounds the coolest, Attack Pattern Alpha Omega Atari. A strategic pattern used by the girls, led by Blossom, of course, having her plan during a fight against the giant orange monster where they attempt to look for a weak spot.
So that's just them flying around. Yeah.
The pattern briefly appears as it turns out to resemble the logo of Atari.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, when it was like Alpha Omega, I was expecting, Beta or something like that, and Atari, I was like, okay, sure.
Not to mention as well, there are the unique abilities of the Powerpuff Girls. So they're just the standard abilities they all have. Blossom has Ice Breath, Microscopic Vision, Lightning Bolts, Pink Laser Beams, and Advanced Intellect, and Intuitive Aptitude. So that allows her to learn at an advanced rate and basically intuit almost any technology or mystery they may encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Exceptional leadership skills, so that is one of her superpowers. So she has just like an innate sense for leadership.
Yes.
Danger sense, intuition that is enhanced, and a photographic memory. So hers are more like knowledge and leadership based, but that would make her a good leader.
And do the other two also have like equivalent power sets?
They do indeed. Bubbles has vaporization, just energy orbs, electricity blasts, zoopathy, so the ability to communicate with animals, animal whispering, multilingualism, so she can speak any and all languages, laser eye beams, thunderclaps, sound manipulation, hypersound manipulation, hypersonic sound waves and blasts. So these all come from her like supersonic screams because she's the crybaby, but she can weaponize those cries, supersonic shields, and hypersound combustion. And finally, Buttercup. She has the Ball Blast, the Black Hurricane, where she just becomes like a torrent of rage and strength. She has superior fighting skills and greater strength than the already awesome strength of the Powerpuff Girls, possibly greater than the other two combined. Bright green colored laser beams, energy orbs, fireballs, which she does by rubbing her hands together until they catch on fire from friction and throwing the fire.
Oh my god.
She can also curl her tongue, which is something that other two Powerpuff Girls can't do, and they're very jealous of.
The most powerful of all abilities, Karl.
It is indeed. Look at that. Yeah, that's the Powerpuff Girls. Great characters.
I
Great
mean, yeah.
characters, great show, great messaging for little girls and boys watching at home, and just genuinely entertaining.
Mm-hmm. I'd say, like, just... I mean, I really enjoyed watching Powerpuff Girls, but the combo of having Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, and, like, Samurai Jack, they were 3 of my favourite Cartoon Network
That
shows,
era
for sure.
might have just been the most top tier, because in between all that as well, because at least on our version of Cartoon Network, they're also peppering the old stuff as well. So like at night before you go to bed, you'd have like old episodes of Looney Tunes and stuff.
Yeah,
It's like,
and then
man, this is just some fucking good.
you also had, like,
good TV shows.
You had the weird ones as well that clearly not mainstream, where it got to like 8, 9 o'clock, and they were willing to then show like Courage the Cowardly Dog and Ed, Ed and Eddie and Cow and Chicken, and clearly not the prime time shows.
Like, Ed, Ed and Eddie was like super fucking top tier though.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
just such a well written show.
Yeah, but clearly not as popular, because they were always the ones that I'd have to like wait for nighttime to go and watch.
Yeah, but like just that was a real good era of like children's television. Because it was like really well made, but also really funny. Almost timeless.
Just, what's that one? They've basically just made a new movie of, like, stole the idea. Oh yeah, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah, I believe that might have been Gendy Tartakovsky again. It seems like his art
Potentially.
style.
Yeah, but like
Has been flashbanged by trying to open up Google.
just
You see that? Watch when I open Google, I get flashbang. It's like playing Elden Ring. Ah!
Oh god, yeah. There's like a movie that's just come. I think it might have been John Krasinski. And it's basically just adult version of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Oh, he's ripped it off and no one's told him.
Yeah. Because it's like it's literally like a play, like, all the imaginary friends are like actually real, and they have no cousins growing up or something.
Wow, what an original show! What an original like, idea, John Krasinski.
I think it was John Krasinski. I've only heard about it like one time. But,
is it like called like If or something? Because if not, if so, that's Ryan Reynolds. Because I saw an ad for that on a bus today when I was going to the gym.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Either
sure
way,
it's called.
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was also like a fantastic show.
Yeah. Oh man, what to be a child again, Carl, and just all you need to worry about is watching Cartoon Network.
It was so good. Not so much like they had on the other side. You also had Nickelodeon. That's where you had like Rugrats and stuff.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You had Nickelodeon. Then like you had all those like live action Nickelodeon shows that were just so fucking top tier. Like you had like the Amanda Show and Drake and Josh and stuff.
I mean, we don't talk about them right now, Carl.
We don't talk about the shows were good.
The shows were good, but like
the showrunner, we're not going to do a Wiki Weekends on him.
No, we are not talking about that Nickelodeon situation over there.
No. So we can't ever do a Wiki Weekends on Drake and Josh. We have to mention who produced it.
And we'd have to mention Drake and Josh, who have not particularly got the best records either.
You ran to Mexico. It's fine. Go away. What?
Oh dear, oh dear.
Let's move on, Lucas. What you going to talk? Let's move on from something that's uncomfortable to talk about. Let's talk about giant slapple robo asses.
Let's talk about something that's uncomfortable to talk about. Oh dear.
It does make me uncomfortable to talk about this because it's just like I just saw that screenshot of Stellar Blade and went, okay, we still making games like this?
I mean, like,
Lucas, let's do housekeeping and get into
it. Yeah, we can get into
no
it. Like, we've got Josh has been relatively clean, right? He hasn't been in the sense of like he made some weird comments kind of defending Dan, being like, oh, he was nice to me though, and it's just like, oh dude.
The classic. Yeah. The abuser didn't abuse me, so they can't be an abuser.
So it's like, yeah, again, let's swiftly move on and go to housekeeping. Carl, what have we got for housekeeping this week?
Well, as people can probably tell, they can't, can they? So I had to move my fucking camera. But you look at my YouTube gamer shelf, Luke, so there's nothing on it. I'm moving, folks. I'm gonna have like nowhere to live. I'm not gonna be homeless, but I'm gonna have a different house.
Like,
So,
I like how you frame that. I'm gonna have nowhere to live.
well, technically I will be, because I think there's that like 12-hour period where I'm technically homeless between like moving to where I'm moving to and where I am now. But as a result, I may actually no, I think I will be streaming this week, but next week I probably won't be, because this computer will be in a box in a van being taken to an undisclosed location.
Which means we may also have to figure out doing like the podcast pre-recorded rather than live.
Yes, or I can call on my phone. My phone that gives me a lisp.
Yeah, it does. It really does. For some reason, whenever Carl joins in like my stream via phone, it's like he sounds like he's got a lisp on the Discord. But
It does, but like, and where would that stream be found, Lucas?
that stream would be found over at twitch.tv/Legend of Kanto.
There it is.
That is where you can find me currently playing an assortment of games on Monday. On Tuesdays, I play through like just Zelda games. I do Tunic Tuesdays for Zelda, and then on Thunder Badge Thursdays, I play Pokemon games. And at the moment, it's going to be solely just 100% committing to the idea of competitively training Pokemon.
You're a braver man than I.
Learning that meta and getting in some more training, because I do really want to go and hit up a tournament in like next year's tournament brackets, and one stream every other week is not really enough to get me like that amount of practice needed.
Yeah, you need to be deep into that world just to like memorize the math involved.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I'm going to be doing more of that. Going to be getting deep into Pokemon. And yeah, hopefully soon, Carl and I can figure out when I've hit that sub goal of like doing Mass Effect Mondays again, doing Mass Effect 3 playthrough. But at the moment, as Carl says, his PC might be in a box.
Yeah, like I said, I fuck it. I'm moving from this place. Who gives a shit? Like, so that's my house. Look, that's everything I own. And yes, I do have like 17 fucking boxes of Adidas trainers, because every year for Christmas, my dad would buy me the same pair of trainers, and then I kept the shoe box. And the shoe boxes, each one contains a different gaming system. One's got a PS2, one's got a SNES, one's got a GameCube, one's got a PS3.
Fair, yeah.
It's handy for moving.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Like, we last did that thing of like just going and buying a bunch of boxes that, you know, are nice and sturdy, rather than going around shops and asking like, have you got any spare boxes? And like, it did help a lot, but yeah, just it does help sometimes to just have random like shoe boxes to organize small things in and stuff.
Yeah, I think a shoe box perfectly fits in like a PS2.
Well, it depends what kind of PS2.
Yeah, but a PS2, the cables and the controllers fit perfectly into a shoe box, and it's like that's good.
Yeah, and Hamza says in chat that Eve is Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds together, so that's the movie. So we were both right on that one, Carl.
There we go. Look at that. Check us out. When we work like the Powerpuff Girls, when we work together, greater than the sum of our parts.
And I guess just one last piece of housekeeping is just to remind everyone who is currently watching in chat to just please leave us a like if you've enjoyed the podcast so far, so that more people are able to find us while we're live.
Yeah, and if you didn't dislike it, congratulations for just watching something you don't like. Do you not have any other hobbies? Come on.
It is weird, the idea that like someone would be in chat still and not enjoying this podcast, but still putting up with it for some reason.
It's like that thing that happened to me earlier this week, where because I'm moving, I took a picture of me just like, oh, that thing that all YouTubers have, the YouTuber gamer shelf. I don't have it anymore. Oh, kind of end of an era, right? Whatever will I do? You know, in that joking way? Just some guy just left like this 4-paragraph long diatribe about how they fucking hate me, and I'm glad that my channel is dead. And it's like, dude, I can see that you got a picture of your son on your profile photo. Go spend time with your child than scrolling on your phone to someone you admittedly don't like to yell at them because the channel that they ran is something you put out a video you didn't like 4 years ago. Get over it.
Yeah, it is really weird to see that kind of level of commitment that people have to continually hating you. And
Yeah,
not you specifically, but just general things that
yeah,
they don't like on the internet.
like the level of vitriol, like to that is an effort directed towards something that's like probably doesn't deserve that level of effort and giving a shit. Speaking of which, Lucas, what have you brought today?
What have I brought today? Well, people who have seen the thumbnail are very aware that I decided to, bring up a topic that was topical
Yeah,
today.
you thrown a hand grenade.
I did. I threw that hand
I've got to
grenade
jump on
in,
it.
and there may be some eyes on chat more so than usual today because we are talking about Stellar Blade, the video game that is coming out in a couple of days, and just the general conversation around the game, Carl.
Has been what I would describe as, and it's a word I use a lot when talking about discussions around gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It is embarrassing.
It is very embarrassing from a certain,
Subset of gamers trademark.
yeah, the
Capital
gamers
G.
TM are outstrong for this one.
And I was not really clued in on what this game was. I saw like the discussion when I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like weird waifu bait nonsense anyway. Like I give a fuck.
Yeah.
And then today, when you mentioned earlier when we were recording, that's the topic of the podcast. Because normally we have a brief discussion about what the topic is to figure out the thumbnail, but for the most part, we don't liaise about it to keep the conversation fresh.
Yeah.
And I said, should I watch the trailer? And you said yes. So I watched the trailer while I was talking to Lucas, and I said, and you can confirm this, it looks like a 7 out of 10 action game that'll be forgotten in a month. And then I think 5 minutes after I said that, you went, oh, reviews have just dropped. What did the reviews say?
And the reviews, I think, at the moment were sitting around like an 82 on Metacritic. So a solid general consensus after like 90-something critics drop reviews of like, this is a solid, 8 out of 10 kind of game.
A 7, 8 out of 10. Because a few reviews like scored it a bit lower, a few scored it a bit higher.
Yeah. Like there's some 6 and 7s, a few 9s in there.
Yeah.
Generally, most people are saying it's in that range of like a 7 to 8 kind of thing.
Yeah, and for me, it's another game that falls into what I and myself and you have dubbed, Lucas, the 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the 7 out of 10, do you remember how we define this?
I don't remember specifically how we define
so
it.
So a 7 out of 10 is a piece of media that is not necessarily fantastic, but to the right person, it can be a 7 out of 10 is a piece of media that isn't of like, it's not knock your socks off great, but it has an interesting enough premise or gimmick or twist where it can scratch that itch for someone who's like hankering for that specific thing. And a good recent example of a 7 out of 10 is Helldivers. Because Helldivers is not a perfect...
I disagree with you there.
Mechanically, it's not perfect.
The
rollout has not been great because there's been a lot of like balancing issues.
I think calling it a 7 out of 10 is unfair to that game.
A 7 out of 10, it's not a knock on its quality. It means that it's not perfect, but what it does is so interesting or so unique or novel that you will overlook the flaws that it has. Would you agree with that with Helldivers? That it's so fun, you'll overlook its flaws?
I think that game, especially after the first week, has very few flaws. I would personally give that easily an 8, maybe a 9 out of 10.
Okay, so the number doesn't matter, but the term set is just it has issues that you will overlook because it scratches a very specific itch, and that itch is the co-op shooter.
I think the perfect way to describe a fun 7 out of 10 for me is a game that's getting a resurgence in like a new edition of the game of the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games.
That's another one, yeah. That's a great example of one. And obviously, again, it's not a knock against the quality. It just means that it's not perfect. But it does something interesting enough where you'll overlook the flaws. And like with Helldivers, for me, the flaws like the balancing, the server issues, not the best. just rollout of new stuff because it normally feels. You know, we talked about Helldivers.
We have talked
Like I
about
said,
Helldivers, yeah.
Budokai Tenkaichi. It's not mechanically a great game, but I love Dragon Ball, so I'll overlook those mechanics because I just fucking love Dragon Ball.
And a saying that I like to use that I first heard over on like Easy Allies is just swimming in sevens.
Swimming in sevens, yeah.
And I love that term of like, you know what, this is a 7 out of 10, but in like the most lovable way of like,
Yes.
I can happily go for a nice little swim in a 7 out of 10 game and enjoy myself. And I love that idea. But Stellar Blade to me seems like it totally is like cool. Yeah, apparently 7, 8 out of 10 kind of game. Like, but to me, this whole conversation has been.
It's not about the mechanics, yeah.
It's not about the quality of the game, but it has definitely been very serviceable to the game's notoriety, because I think this game would have just gone straight past me.
It would have been another forgettable character action game.
Mm-hmm.
If not for this, because every time they release, we're doing a new stylish like character action game in the vein of like Nier Automata or Devil May Cry, I look at it and go, okay, so what does the dodge button do? Is it like frame perfect or what? No, okay. Because I think when I play Final Fantasy 16,
yeah,
so, it's a great character action game. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's visually very impressive, but it's not a fun character action game.
The thing I've heard with Stellar Blade, obviously opinions are only just coming out like today.
What's the the people who've actually played the game are actually now giving their opinions on it, and it's like it's all right.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and I've heard people know apparently more like 25, 30, which is
okay
longer than I would like a character action game to usually be. But I have
heard
it's
a good one.
Yeah, I've heard it described as like a mixture between character action game and a game a bit more like Sekiro. Where
and that's
kind of like there's a lot of emphasis around like a parry and stagger mechanic like in Sekiro.
Which I can get my teeth into that, and I am a connoisseur of this genre, and I play many a game like this, and it's as a result I'm more critical. That's why I think I'd describe it as a 7 out of 10, because it's never going to top Devil May Cry. It's never going to top Bayonetta. It's not going to be as good as like Nier Automata, but it might scratch that itch for me, and therefore become a 7 out of 10. Yeah, there's not many of these games released, so I'm willing to overlook those flaws just to play another character action game with interesting gimmicks.
Mm-hmm. Just a few notable review scores on here, just on the notable by the standards of whoever's written this Wikipedia page, not my opinion. But some review scores here. We got Destructoid gave it an 8 out of 10, Eurogamer a 4 out of 5, Game Informer 8.75 out of 10, GameSpot 8 out of 10, IGN 7 out of 10, JewVideo.com 17 out of 20, Chuck News an 8 out of 10, and Video Games Chronicle a 4 out of 5. So all strong review scores there, yeah.
Yeah, like so, very solid. I don't think it's going to be, as I said, not your socks off fantastic, but as a fan of the character action genre, okay, that gives me something to play.
Yeah,
and I think a 7 out of 10 is not a bad thing. It means it is of acceptable, better than average quality. That's a really good review.
Like, I think, for example, 7 out of 10 on IGN. I think in IGN's scale, they classify 7 as good.
Yep.
Like, that is not saying that it's, like, bad in any way. And for some reason, people have this idea of, like, 7 out of 10 is a big, massive insult to something. It's like, no, that literally means it's good.
Well, it's the Disneyfication, the Disney problem, where because it's an embarrassment of riches. You now, in this day and age, have such a dearth of content to choose from. People very seldom choose to play, view, or interact with media that is bad. And as a result, their perspective of what is good is warped.
Well, look at, say, for an example, on IGN. People often criticize it because basically every single, at least game, I don't know about the movies and entertainment side of it, but like game critic side, they get annoyed because every single game on your website gets a 7 out of 10 or better. Why is there no 1s and 2s? And it's like, because no one wants to interact with a 2 out of 10 video game, generally speaking.
Also, when's the last time you actually played a like Lucas? Right, genuinely, when's the last time? I won't say games, just any piece of media you would legitimately give a 1 or 2 out of 10, and not just because you hate it, that you would legitimately like it is terrible.
Like,
And
that's the thing. I can't think of one because generally, most of the time, I either like read a review or play or watch something based on a friend's recommendation.
Yeah, and that's a question I would like to ask the people listening at home or like watching live along. Can you legitimately, genuinely tell me something you would give 1 out of 10 that you have watched, played, or interacted with recently? And it's very difficult because if you want to look at something objective, it's almost impossible to give something a review that bad.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's like,
Especially modern media, because most of it is at least competently made.
I'm sure there is shit on like the Steam storefront where it's
or
an
Amazon
asset
Prime.
flip that's just trying to get a clickbaity title and confuse people or something like that.
How many people play those?
Exactly. Like, how many people actually interact with them in any way?
Yeah, and that's why it's called the Disney problem. Or it's like that's the colloquial term I've heard for it, because imagine being a kid and being raised on like Disney movies and like DreamWorks movies. And that's why you'll see like, oh, this movie looks terrible. It's like this movie actually looks fantastic, but it just doesn't look as good as a Disney movie that's been backed by the single most powerful corporation on planet Earth.
Well,
it actually looks reasonably okay, but because you are comparing it to something that looks fucking fantastic, to you, that's a 1 out of
10. Like, it is very, visible. A more modern example is just the MCU, where now when a bad MCU film comes out post Endgame, people shit on it and say it's like, oh, this was a terrible film. Like, oh, Eternals was like one of the worst movies ever. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It was a good 6, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, here's the thing, Lucas. I watch so many bad movies.
Mhm.
People don't know what bad movies are.
No, they do not.
No. It's like the same thing with games. Like, I don't play many like bad games, but I did as a kid. Because I had to.
Yeah.
Because, there was no like quality control back then, really. Like, that ET, the thing that nearly killed the gaming industry, was farted out.
I mean, like, that's the weird thing, though. At the time, E.T. wasn't even that generally awful a video game.
It's just they made too many of them.
They marketed the shit out of it as well.
Yeah.
Like, they made it seem like it was going to be like playing E.T., but of course it wasn't. It was just a shit Atari
They
game.
overpromised and underdelivered, yeah. But there's very few bits of media I would ever legitimately give like a 1 or 2 out of 10. And I am pretty much morally opposed to the idea of saying any piece of media is valueless, because a quote I like to say, I think I came up with this: all media has value, even if its value is just showing you what not to do. But I think, especially with online discourse, with it being so binary, everything is either the worst piece of shit ever made or the best thing, like blow your socks off amazing, makes you a cup of coffee in the morning.
And, speaking of just being very kind of in one camp or the other,
binary discourse, yes.
The very binary discourse that is surrounding this game at the moment is that, oh, well, finally, as the title of this podcast implies, like, we are finally able to, like, play a game where the character is sexy again.
Lucas, Baldur's Gate came out last year.
Yeah, they're all so hot. It's like, for some reason...
This is why I say it's actually embarrassing.
It is terribly embarrassing. And it goes along...
the most unapologetically horny game I've ever played.
Yeah. It, like, goes along with that kind of similar discourse that happened a couple of years ago when the newer Horizon came out, and people that have never seen a woman before in their life were like, oh my god, they made Aloy so ugly because she's a supermodel that has facial fuzz and looks like a real woman with bushy eyebrows and no makeup.
I'm just going to double check. I'm pretty sure.
Gang.
Yeah, Aloy's like face model is literally a model.
Yes, yeah.
Not to mention as well, Aloy is actually just ridiculously attractive.
Especially for the setting of the game, yeah.
Yeah, like she is conventionally attractive by every measure of the term, with the exception of she has slight blemish. I can't point mine out because I'm being washed out by the flashbang of chat. Well, every person has blemishes on their face. Everyone has like scars and peach fuzz. Remember that's like, oh, why does Aloy have a beard? It's like, oh, she has facial fuzz.
And it is literally coming from just the worst kind of people online. Just like seemingly people that haven't even seen a real woman from any from any distance close enough to like notice that women have hair on their face.
Well, it's like you get those posts, isn't it, from guys making fun of, oh, look how much worse this girl looks without makeup on. And it's like, well, way to tell on yourself, bro, that you've never had a woman stay over. And the problem is that the people who make those criticisms are very loud and think that they speak for everyone playing video games, which includes myself and you, Lucas.
Yes.
Which is why I describe it as embarrassing. Because you see discussions like this happening and you're like, especially with me, it's like, we're going to have to talk about this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right, is like, I know that we are both on that side of like, oh, really? But for the sake of like doing a podcast online and
it's an interesting discussion, yeah.
An entertaining discussion to people, like, we do have to kind of talk about it. And
we don't have to.
We don't have to.
You could have
I've decided we have to because, you know, mainly because I just wanted to like put her in the thumbnail and see how people would react. But
it's like the Powerpuff Girls in the thumbnail.
I didn't know you were talking about the Powerpuff Girls.
True, yeah.
Oh, but yeah, just like it's one of those really embarrassing things where people are saying that this is kind of finally this Eve, I think she is called in the game. It's like
it's the fact it's finally.
Finally, we are able to have like
Bayonetta
a sexy
3 came
woman.
Out 5 years ago.
Bayonetta 3 came out like 2 years ago or something.
Here's what, Lucas, right? I can't think of a medium that is more replete with attractive people in video gaming because everyone, up until because the quality, the fidelity wasn't there to render flaws. So everyone was flawless.
Yes, yeah, and it's just that weird thing, isn't it? Of like, I don't remember a time in gaming where we didn't have ridiculously hot people.
Here's a question, like again, like Joanne asked people earlier, like naming like a legit 1 out of 10. Lucas, can you think of a legitimately unattractive by conventional standards video game main character? Because of course you're going to be like Don Cornell or something. But
there are some, like the first one that came into my head for some reason was Kane and Lynch.
But I guess there's probably
the most popular game of all time, GTA 5. Like Trevor is one of the 3 main characters and is meant to literally be unattractive.
But there probably is like the thing is that even then,
but even
it still looks all right.
When Trevor is like the example in, you know, a very popular game of, well, this guy's ugly. It's like, no, he's not. He's just not well groomed.
Yeah.
It's like if he wasn't a meth head that didn't look after himself, he would look fine.
Like Stephen Ogg. Yeah, I guess like Kane and Lynch, they look fine. Like they look like my dad.
Like that's the thing they're not ugly. They are normal looking.
And I'll make it even more difficult. Same question. Now name a female video game main character who is conventionally unattractive.
Yeah, it's like I know I'm trying to think.
Right? One of them must exist, but I can't think of who they are.
One of them must, but like, I guess maybe not conventionally attractive. There are probably some good examples in fighting games where they've got very over-exaggerated character design elements, like the big like buff muscle mummy in the new Street Fighter. I wouldn't say that they are not conventionally what you think of as like the attractive poster girl woman, but they are still very attractive.
And this is what makes this conversation difficult because like we're not saying that the character is ugly, or we're saying conventionally, and by conventionally we mean like the standard, usually Western ideal of what attractiveness is. It's actually like blonde hair. Like for a woman, it'd be like, you know, hourglass figure, blonde hair, like soft features.
Longer hair, like quite slender and slim profile, like
Like as well, someone in chat's like the hag from Baldur's Gate 3. I said main character.
Yeah, a main character.
That's like, no, why do
someone
people
that you'd
not
see
listen?
on like a poster or on the front, like on a box cover or something like that. Like
My absolute worst thing.
the party characters in Baldur's Gate 3, for example.
My most hated thing about talking about like stuff like this is when you ask a question like this, people they don't listen to the question. They come up with their own version of the question to answer it to win.
It's like the main characters, characters. But like, you
I
look at
can't
the
think of a
main
single one.
party of Baldur's
Every single
Gate,
one.
and they are all super hot and super fuckable. Literally in the game, they are all fuckable.
It reminds me of like a really funny, just a one-off line in Prison Break, where like in like one of the later seasons, like there's a character hanging out with, like, they're going undercover with the Prison Break gang. Like, you know, it's really tough being like undercover with the Prison Break gang. And they go, it must be really tough hanging out with like, you know, the front cover of GQ magazine, because like every single person in the show, despite being like a criminal, is just like a fucking supermodel attractive.
Yeah, because they're all successful actors in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, and it's like that's what makes it so embarrassing. Like I can't think of any, especially a video game, where the main character is conventionally unattractive.
As I say, like, because you rely on a cast of characters, fighting games is probably the first place where you could find it. But even then, they're all like pretty much all always attractive in their own way.
Yeah,
and you know,
and usually when a character is unattractive, it's generally a man.
More often than not, yeah. And it's just like it's one of those things where I can't think of even like a single year in video gaming where there weren't a bunch of hot people all over video games. Of like, one of the most popular games over the past few years has been fucking Genshin Impact.
Yeah. So someone mentioned in chat Abby and Ellie. No, Abby's like directly modelled after Laura Bailey, who's very attractive, and Ellie is modelled on Ashley Johnson.
Like they both don't look fine. They are both attractive women.
Yeah.
And again,
maybe Abby because she has an atypical body type, but still, like Abby's facial model wise, like she's based on an actual actress / model.
Like that's the thing is they still are an attractive person. They might not be. Again, like you're not wrong in saying that they're not 100% conventionally attractive in the sense that they are more muscular than what that you know normally is wanting from a woman. Like as we keep saying,
it's so difficult, right?
Attractive. I keep stumbling over my words because I'm like, I don't want to try and be that guy and be offensive to women. It's like Abby is attractive, but we're trying to use that example of like conventionally attractive.
It's what makes these discussions so difficult because we know that we're not. Oh no, we probably everyone is a little bit sexist or everyone has like misogynistic tendencies just by virtue of living in the world. I mean, raised by media that is. We try our best to avoid it, but when you're having these discussions, you have to put yourself into the shoes of someone who is. That's why, like myself and Lucas are stumbling over our words here.
We are a bit because we don't want to appear like those guys where it's like, oh well, yeah, Abby's not hot, Ellie's not hot. It's like, I mean, Ellie is based on an attractive woman. Like, I wouldn't necessarily call her hot, especially in the first game, because she is
a child,
like, a literal child in that game. But she is still modeled very accurately after a very attractive woman in real life.
There's also that thing of like, I guarantee you, any of these characters, people would say, if you held up a photo of them, like 90% of people, like, I would.
That's the thing is, all of those people that complained about Aloy, all of them would probably drop dead in a conversation with Aloy herself because just she's very hot and probably hotter than any woman they've ever spoken to.
Yeah,
it's just
it's because like very few. Like, you don't really want to play as a character that you don't. There's a psychological reasoning for this, and it's people find it difficult to empathize and put themselves in the position of characters that they don't find attractive. And that's why often, like in movies and TV shows and games, villains are ugly or conventionally unattractive because it makes them easier to dislike.
Yeah, and like that is a weird thing of just kind of like pretty privilege, right? Of like that is a real thing. Pretty privilege,
it's a real thing,
exist.
Yeah,
just generally speaking, the more attractive you are, the more people have a tendency to initially like you.
Yeah, they the psychological basis for it is you associate positive traits with people who are physically attractive, and those
And
even if that person does not necessarily act in a way that would engender those feelings.
yeah, and it's also one of those weird psychological things of people are then nicer to attractive people because they, either they what might find them attractive and be wanting to, enter some kind of relation with them. They might just be wanting to deepen their connection with that person in a sense of like becoming a friend with them or something. And just generally, there's that weird like social psychology of putting yourself closer to attractive people just
Yeah.
will make your life better.
It also as well it's more disarming.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like a limit to it because there is a point where you can become too attractive, and I think they use like Tinder and stuff for this, where people who are like actual supermodels really
Mm-hmm.
struggle to get swipes on Tinder because people are intimidated by how good looking they are.
But if they met them in real life, they would probably still, you know, exhibit that kind of pretty privileged attitude around them
Most
of
likely,
like
yeah.
being immediately nicer to that person.
Yeah, it is a fascinating area of social psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and it does it bleeds into the media that we consume of people making games, and main characters know that people will empathize and want to spend time with in a video game, sometimes dozens, hundreds of hours. A character who is good looking,
Yeah.
at least by Western standards most of the time.
And it is very funny just like hearing, like, I do find it infuriating to listen to these people, but I also think there is like that hilarity to the discussion in the sense of like, man, it
Yeah,
is so funny to watch people say that like Tifa was not hot because they gave her a sports bra.
it is. It's you just find yourself thinking, is this a bit?
Yeah.
Like, is this a bit? It's like, do you ever see like the thing of like it's like True Rate Me on Reddit? I saw like a
Wait,
thread
what
a
did
while
you
ago.
what?
True Rate Me.
Okay, you can
So like
continue.
Rate Me. Did you think I said? Oh God, sorry, my pronunciation was bad on that. So
Yeah.
Rate Me is a subreddit where you just take a picture of yourself. It's like, hey, what do you think I look like? Scale of 1 to 10. And apparently, people on that were giving too many people too high a score
So
because
people then got salty and made like oh well, we're gonna have the real rate me subreddit
yeah,
where
and some
we're gonna be
like,
harsh to people.
and I saw a thread of those going around where it's like Margot Robbie got 5 out of 10. Yeah, yeah. It's
Like
like
I remember this happening when Barbie came out, and obviously
people are like, oh,
men were
Margot
real
Robbie's not
mad
attractive.
because it's like they were scared off by fucking feminism and they can't handle it. But they were like, oh yeah, Margot Robbie's so mid though. Like,
Yeah,
are you insane?
and you find yourself thinking, is this a bit, or is it just that admitting that you are wrong would be that catastrophic for your ego?
Mm-hmm.
The only way that your ego can survive is to convince yourself that these characters, these women, are unattractive.
Which is wild because then if Margot Robbie's a 5, the rest of us are fucked. Like,
Who's a 10?
everyone's a fucking 1. It's like, dear God, if you're putting the scale of mid being Margot Robbie, then like none of us have any chance.
Yeah, but and then I would guess when it to bring it back to like Stellar Blade of if your criteria for what makes a quote unquote attractive character is a porcelain doll, I guess
Pretty much, like, yeah, because I think the character Eve is like a literal robot or something.
yeah, and I think a piece of criticism from initial trailers that those weirdo reactionaries got like globbed onto is someone said they just look like a sex doll,
Mm-hmm.
which is yeah,
Yeah, and the developers Shift Up Second Eve Studio here, just like Shift Up is the developer listed like above, so like it's a bit of a weird one, but Yeah, they know what they are doing with the design, and they know what they're doing with like the outfits all being like these super tight fitting, just super shiny, almost like transparent looking outfits, and for some reason the jiggle physics are set to like just a ridiculous amount so that everything that on a body that can jiggle is just going everywhere.
And I look at it and I think it's the same thing when I look at like Dead or Alive. Of like, there is a fantastic fighting game underneath this. This is embarrassing to play.
It
This
literally
like,
is, and I
do the old
remember,
joke like, oh, you're playing like you're watching a movie and the sex scene happens, your mum walks in.
yeah,
Like, no, it's actually a really good movie. You're playing a video, you're playing Dead or Alive, and your mum walks in and sees like two women in wedding dresses, like throwing each other down a flight of stairs whilst moaning.
like,
Like,
yeah, and I remember you telling me like, look, do you want to play some Dead or Alive? And I'd never played it before. Oh, trust me, it is a good fighting game. It is, and we played it, and it was. But then we just basically had to put every character in like the sweatpants or whatever it was to make it less embarrassing to watch.
to play, yeah.
Just because I was like, man, this is actually a really cool like system of like strikes and grapples and stuff like that, all being in like that rock paper scissors
Yeah, it's
gameplay
really
style.
mechanically it's really fun. But then you just play
Yeah,
it and it's like, but what's it known as? Like the weird waifu bait game. And that's what I guess
and
it's a card you can play.
it's also associated as well with having, one of the first things that ever came to my brain when someone mentioned DOA is like, oh, is that the game that got the weird volleyball spin-off, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, dear God. They
And as I said, yeah, a piece of criticism at Stellar Blade was like the main character looks like a sex doll. It's like, yeah, it's probably one of the most generic designs I've ever seen. Like if you just change the color of that character's hair to red, you could convince me that's a Kasumi spin-off from Dead or Alive.
And
It's like it's a well, oh sorry, go on. Yeah, because
I
there's
was
something I
gonna
was going
say
to mention.
that's like what I more have like the problem with, I guess, in this conversation. I have a problem with all of it, as people can tell, but like they're going to bat for the most like generic fucking character.
Yeah, it's not like Bayonetta because I remember
Mhm.
like in the criticism of Bayonetta, legit.
Yes.
You know, I can see why people would be uncomfortable with that design, but the character design is more often than not fantastic, and every redesign Bayonetta's had has been really good.
Yeah, and the fact that she owns that sexuality and, has a character based around making fun of it and like using it to make others feel uncomfortable in combat and stuff. It all comes together in that way of like the criticisms are still valid and are still there, but at
And
least
I
they're
can
doing
understand
something
them, yeah.
interesting with it.
That's the thing, yeah. It's like I can understand and empathize with the thing, like with the criticisms of the character being overly sexualized. I can see, like, as you mentioned there, that okay, she owns that sexuality, but then she's a fictional character who was written to own it. Like she has no agency of her own, so it's like
And
it's
most of it
oh,
was written and designed by men.
one man in particular who's very horny for that character. But then it's worth pointing out one of the lead designers is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of Bayonetta's like designs, like the outfit she wears, were designed by like a really great illustrator. She's fun fact also did the initial character designs for Reina from Tekken
Oh,
8.
sweet. Yeah, and it's that same thing that we've brought up in the past of like having those conflicting feelings with the design of Samus being turned into Zero Suit Samus.
Yeah.
But then the Zero Suit was initially concepted and designed, like the one in Metroid Zero Mission, I think, was designed by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
it's
then a
like,
guy got on it and went put high heels on it, and it's like, oh.
yeah, so it's like, I don't like the fact that they had to strip this badass out of her power armor and give her booty shorts. But I guess like it's that weird thing of, is it stripping away a female empowerment if a woman did it? And the answer is still yes, but it feels a bit of different. Like,
Yeah, and then it's that thing of like, then people. One thing that always gets me about conversation like this as well is people talk about the character as if they're real. Of like, the character can dress however they want. It's like the character's not real.
mm-hmm.
They don't dress how they want. They dress how the person who wrote them tells them to dress. And for
Like,
99% of cases, the person who wrote them that way is a man.
yeah, the argument of, oh, but Bayonetta owns her sexuality. Yes, because mainly men told her to because she's a fictional character.
So the example I use of this is when I play like Metal Gear games of like Hideo Kojima was sat down on the design process for like the beauties,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, he didn't write the entire game, but he was sat in on the design process, and he's one of the people who was like influencing the decision of getting models that he had the hots for to play them. And then in gameplay, they will writhe around on the floor in a sexual manner when they're asleep. And he was like, directing them in the voice booth to sound more sexual, like the actors who played them and stuff. It's like,
and coming to the idea of a character concept of Metal Gear Solid 5 of, well, it's justified for Quiet to be naked most of the time because of the weird photosynthetic thing that she's got going on. But that's a thing that you concepted so that she could be mostly naked.
Also, it's a concept he reused from Metal Gear Solid 3, and the character who had it in that wears full ghillie suit.
Yes, yeah.
And like, we mentioned earlier, like Tekken and stuff. So are you familiar with the term Tekken face?
No.
So this is like a thing like, so one of the reasons why character designs like this, I dislike them, is because it's so limiting. And there's something called Tekken face, where if you go into like the model viewer for Tekken, and you like change the haircuts of every female character to look to the same haircut, the characters are virtually indistinguishable from one another.
And that can also be said for quite a lot of the male characters in Tekken as well. Like,
well,
not
there are
as many
variation. Yeah, like men can have stronger features. Like characters like Brian Fury can have stronger, sharper, more angular features compared to a character like Jin, or Kazuya has like scars and like one of his eyes is like evil and red.
Yeah.
Whereas female characters, for the most part, there's only really one way. There's like one set way to make them look attractive. So that's what most of the characters, they have these set shared traits which make them look indistinguishable without their outfits.
Yeah,
what I mean, if like they're dressed in generic outfits and you give them the same haircut, you can't actually tell the difference between them.
It is more prominent with female characters, and like it also happens in a lot of like new Disney stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like, I can't remember the exact comparison, but I think it might be like Anna and Rapunzel. If you just take both of those characters and swap the hair, it's the same character, like the same face, basically.
Virtually every female Disney character has almost exactly the same face. And the reason why is because for many, many years, internally, they had this rule where Disney princesses and female characters in Disney media could not look unattractive in any frame. Like you weren't allowed to be able to pause the film and have them look unattractive or off model in a single frame. And that was incredibly limiting to the animators. So they basically just gave every single female character the same face almost, because they figured out one way to make a character look conventionally attractive and stay on model. So, but that wasn't a rule for the men. That's why you have so much variation in male characters. Like think about how goofy and expressive like Aladdin is.
Yeah.
When he's like, he's doing like big shit-eating grins and like stuff like mugging for the camera. Can you think of any moment where Princess Jasmine does that?
Yeah.
And that's
I'm saying yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, I can't think of a moment.
No, what I mean is like, yeah, you're agreeing because
yeah,
and that's because they're not allowed to go off model, and that's incredibly limiting, and it results in less diversity of character design and just makes for an altogether less interesting medium, because all the female characters have to look like fucking supermodels all the time, whereas the guys can be goofy and go off model, and there's an elasticity and flexibility and malleability to their design. It's the same in games where, okay, sure, if you want the Stellar Blade design, you want every character to look like that, you're going to get bored eventually.
I was watching a video review earlier of Stellar Blade, and there was a bit where it, like, showed a clip of somebody that wasn't Eve and must be her, like, sidekick or friend or whatever. And then I didn't realize during that clip that it wasn't the main character until it then panned to the main character. I was like, oh, they just look basically the exact same.
Yeah, because they are the same generic, attractive waifu bait model. It's like when you look at like Genshin Impact. The only way to tell those characters apart is their hairstyle.
Right, yeah.
Like they don't have this, like most animes. Where
like a lot of them might have different like outfits or hair.
But their faces are exactly the same because there is a set like list of traits and features that they have that is attractive.
Yes, yeah.
And one body, and then as well with women, there's generally one body type. So you have variation there, and it just results in like really limited pool of character designs.
And I'm
which is
just
not
double
great.
checking. Like, I'm pretty sure that Eve in this game is like just essentially similar to like 2B, where I think that they are all just like sex robot looking robots.
Well, that's the thing. Like that was the thing about 2B, but 2B at least has interesting flares to a design. Like the fact that she like has. So I watch his Stellar Blade, and it's like the fact that the character runs like 2B. So I'm not going to, defend all aspects of 2B's design, but there's at least flourishes to it.
And I
make it interesting.
I can't find a definitive answer for like what Eve is in the game because the game's only just come out, so
and no one gives a fuck.
There's
no discussion about it.
The wikis seem to be quite just light on things at the moment. I'm trying to look here, maybe like here. Okay, cool. There's not even a story on the fandom for Stellar Blade yet. So yeah,
Lucas, this is the biggest game ever. Because that's always the thing as well. The people who've thrown their entire life behind this thing, they're not writing wikis because they don't actually care. They just want to be on Twitter yelling at people. We've probably talked about this game more than they have, at least. And when I say talk, I mean actually discussed it.
Yes,
they've certainly talked about it a lot. By which means they've yelled at people.
They've used it as a way to stare at, a bunch of hot women and complain at people. And it's always the problem, isn't it? Of like, they don't actually care. They're just looking for a fight.
And this is their latest excuse. Like, it's the same with all like reactionary culture warriors. It happened remember it happened with Helldivers. People were jumping on that because they realized it was satire. And then 1 week later it was Warhammer. And it was this. And next week it'll be something else, because ultimately they don't actually care. They just like upsetting people, because upsetting people pay attention to them because they don't have personalities, or at least personalities that people want to spend time with.
Yeah, and I am aware, chat, that the game isn't out till Friday, but like, the thing is, there's been previews, there's reviews out, there's been multiple trailers over many years. Like, there's a lot of details and things that people could use to still fill out like a wiki page if they really give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, there could be some story details that have already been revealed about the basic just plot and what Eve is, to, at least fill out some of the wiki. It's not like I expect something super in-depth for a game that's not out yet, but the fact that it's hard for me to just get a quick to Google definitive answer on the fly says it all. And
is there anything on like the wiki page about like the pre-release discussions or anything? Is there any like choice quotes that you'd like to single out?
Not particularly, no. But there is like just one thing that I've mentioned to you and like tweeted about that I did find very funny, and it was like a person who had made an unofficial, like multi-minute long music video, very unofficial, for the game. And it just, I can't remember exactly what the line that was singled out that I saw tweeted out, but it was along the lines of like, handsome gamer boys reunite so that we can like go against these woke sites, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, and that sums it up, doesn't it? Of like, this is all about the wokeism crowd, and
it's
go woke,
all about,
go broke.
It's about having another tool in that arsenal to throw at people. Like, when it was X-Men 97 for a little bit, but then X-Men 97 was good. Then it was what was it now, Baldur's Gate 3, and that was good. Then it was Barbie, and then that made $1 billion. Now this is something that, like, more liberally minded people might take an issue with, like myself and you. Like, as we said, the game looks fun, but just that character design is just a bit cringy.
I'm going to be playing the game this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm going to be giving it a go.
But it's kind of cringy. But there's the kind of people who are making videos like that and sharing them unironically. they would use it to attack us. Because look, the game's good, the game's really successful, they don't care what you think. He goes, oh, okay, but I'm still going to have the discussion because I like to think about the media that I consume.
Yes.
Because otherwise, I'm just a sponge. Not even a sponge, that means you're not absorbing anything.
Consume, Karl. Just consume. Don't think, just consume. But yeah, it's like, according to Indominus in chat, I think, she is human, according to an interview in March, so thank you for that information. Because it is a very, like, almost Nier Automata-esque world of, like, a lot of sci-fi elements, and I think there is some kind of, like, cyborgy characters in there. It might not necessarily be Eve.
Yeah, it's Nier Automata. We've got Nier Automata at home.
This game really does look like it is. We've got Nier Automata at home. And not to really dunk on it that hard, it doesn't look like a bad game, as we've said multiple times. It's just, it looks like Nier Automata, but they've taken a bit of a grinder to the edges in terms of how interesting it looks.
Yeah, it's that thing like that main character. If you took that main character and put it on the front of, like, do you remember those PC graphics card boxes where they just have like a generic anime girl on? I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But if you put Bayonetta, that's Bayonetta.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, maybe the character of Eve will become an iconic mainstay, a beloved icon of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But I would bet against that being the case because nothing about that design arrests my attention.
Not about the character design. Apart from just...
But that's the thing, but there's so many characters who have giant slappable badonkadonks, but also have interesting, cool designs. We talked about Chun-Li a few weeks ago. We mentioned Bayonetta.
Yeah,
2B at least looks visually interesting.
Yeah.
Like the white hair, the black dress, the mask over her eyes, which naturally invites curiosity about what the fuck's going on there.
And 2B doesn't look like something I've seen before.
No, and that's, like I said, just there's aspects of 2B's design that are, you've seen, like, her look, she's very generically attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But I said just the fact that she has her eyes covered, it's like, why does she have her eyes covered? What's the deal there? I said it invites your curiosity. There's aspects of the design that are interesting.
And it is just
stand out.
It's very funny to see people, like, willing to just be dying on this weird hill, defending Eve of all people, like, of all characters. And it literally is just, again, another shot in the dark from the go broke crowd that just want the attention. And I'm kind of glad that it's getting the attention in the sense of at least people are talking about the game, and I want that game to be able to do well. And apparently, like, actually I won't say anything because that might be spoilerish to some people.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see the game succeed, and hopefully it's a good, fun game. And I always want to support gaming. It's
like I said, it's got to be like Dead or Alive, where it's going to be, man, that's a really fun game. It's a shame about that main character, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just,
the thing is,
I want character action games to be successful and these kind of games to succeed, so we get more of them.
And Joe, for the sake of fairness, there are many other games where this is the case. Like I said, Dead or Alive, Final Fantasy 16. That's another game I played where, like, that's a really good game. It's a shame about that main character. That dishwater milquetoast motherfucker on the front of the box that I have to play as for 60 hours.
Remember Karl, Clive.
Yeah, so if there's any other characters like that, for the sake of fairness, any, like, just boring ass characters.
Speaking of Final Fantasy, fucking Noctis turned me off Final Fantasy 15.
Same thing happened with me, Didn't like any of the characters in that.
I mean, I've heard, like, people always point out Prompto as being, like, the one that they love in the game eventually, and especially in, like, the DLC. And I'm just like, okay, but all four of them, when I played that first 10 hours of the game, were just unbelievably boring and generic characters.
Yeah, I had the same thing. One for me is Nathan Drake. I never was able... people like Nathan Drake. I was never able to get over how boring his design is. And I think that's because I was a latecomer to the franchise. And by that point, that scarf thing that he wears had become like remember the year of the scarf? And as a result, I thought his design looked really generic and just didn't like the character. But apparently his characterization is quite good.
His characterization is pretty good. It's one of those things of like Nolan North is charming.
I just couldn't get over like how generic the design was, but
He's
it wasn't.
super generic white dude, yeah, like
Yeah,
he really is. But he is essentially, we made Indiana Jones. That's what that was always aiming to be.
and that's the thing. He's a conventionally attractive dude. I just don't find his. Let's say maybe not gameplay, just designs. Then what are designs that you like find just like that, like just off-putting, even if they're good? Like I said, Nathan Drake's a good one where he's a conventionally attractive dude. I just don't find anything about his design interesting. Nothing about his design makes him iconic.
Yeah,
like he is just Guy.
I guess like most of the Assassin's Creed games, like I think the
hood saves it. The hood saves it for a lot of those.
The hood saves it for a lot of them, but especially I can't remember the name of the main character. The male version of both the Valhalla character and the Odyssey characters. Both of the male ones were like, what the fuck is this?
And the one in the Victorian one, it's like Jacob and Evie.
Oh, Jacob as well, yeah.
He's so unmemorable.
Like,
from what I remember, conventionally attractive character. Just I don't give a fuck because he's not as interesting as just top hat wearing woman and a pimp cane just slapping people.
And like, just I remember looking there was Cassandra and then I think it's Eivor either way in the Viking one in Valhalla. But I remember just like watching a clip of Odyssey where it's like the male, and then I went over and was like, what's Cassandra like? So I did start that game and was trying to pick which character I like more. And I was like, oh, Cassandra's actually got a personality.
Yeah, I remember like there was a great review of it. If you don't play the Assassin's Creed Odyssey as Cassandra, you are a coward.
Yeah, like you're playing that game wrong. Same with
I don't know how male character.
I don't know how I ever mentioned it, Carl. Of just like playing through Mass Effect, like default femshep to default male shepherd. Like, dear God, pick femshep.
It's night and day. And again, just Mark Vanderloo is a very attractive guy. Nothing that design is not interesting.
No, and like just I always prefer the performance from Jennifer Hale. I just feel like femshep has more character.
And just design wise, just bald man. We've had that like 20 fucking times.
Super generic bald guy.
And I think that hopefully gets across our point here of like it's not about the character being attractive, at least to me. It's that the character design is boring and something we've seen 100 times before. You would see it on the cover of any of those like this game will make you come in 5 seconds games. But that's what it is. You'd see it like you said, on the front cover of like, it's not interesting. Nothing about it invites curiosity or arrests your attention.
No.
And as a result, it's a bad character.
Oh, look, she's in skin tight, shiny outfit. It's like, I guess that's grabbing in a sense, but it's not memorable.
It attracts your attention in the most surface level glib way.
And then 10 seconds later, it's like, okay, but what else? What else is she as a character or as a design?
But I said like the other examples, like Nathan Drake as a character. It's guy in t-shirt with gun. Like it's like it is the default outfit you wear as a Fortnite character.
Oh god, it's no Peely. Like that's the thing. I remember Peely. I don't remember whatever the fuck. Is it Jonesy? Jonesy, I think it is. That's like the main character of Fortnite.
And he's so generic looking that you don't give a fuck.
God, yeah, I remember Naked Peely.
I think that sums up the point, though, isn't it? And like every character we mentioned, including Peely, is very attractive. but they're not memorable.
Yeah, well, Peely is.
Peely is, yeah.
I don't want this Peely disrespect on this podcast, Carl.
And it can happen a lot. It's like, and I think even in the realm of Final Fantasy, because like Final Fantasy is probably a great example of this. the designs got so messy in the later games. Like the joke is like the thousands of belts, and it kind of is understandable when you think, well, you've got to do something, because we had a guy with a giant polygon of golden hair and a sword 4 times the size of his torso. That's like, how do we top that?
Yeah.
And they had to keep coming up with like, and some of them weren't great.
Some of them were really good designs, and it's weird to me that I think that the defenders of Final Fantasy 13 don't want to admit that they just think Lightning looks awesome, which she does. Lightning is a great design.
Lightning has a fantastic design, but Clive does not have a good design. No. It's way too generic. Even for the game that he's in, there's other characters with better designs in his own game.
Yeah. And like Lightning as well, in the third game, where you basically can like dress up and use all different job classes via what outfit you're wearing. Lightning always, you can tell it's Lightning regardless of outfit. Even when she's dressed in Cloud's outfit, you can tell it's Lightning.
Which is it's the mark of a good character. Like that, you can tell it is the character even when because there's some aspect of their character that is identifiable immediately at a glance, like Cloud's hair, or the sword that he wields, or. But if you put Nathan Drake in a different outfit, you won't know it's Nathan Drake.
And that's the point that I'm kind of trying to make, chat, is like, yeah, Lightning is great, and 13 is a corridor simulator. Like, 13 is not a very good game, but I think the reasoning why so many people are diehard fans of it and will defend it to their grave is because the character designs are really cool.
Yeah, Lightning has a very, very strong design.
And so do a few of the other ones, to be fair, as well. Like, I think, like, Snow's got a pretty good, memorable design. I can't remember the name, but the woman with, like, the darker hair, like the long dark hair and like the big staff, like she looks really cool as well. Been a few years now since I've dragged myself through that game, so I can't remember all their names, but
and it must be difficult to make an iconic, visually distinct character 40 years into the life of the medium. Like, not everything's going to be a winner, and there's going to be some stuff that's a bit generic, and that's what I think this character is.
Very generic, yes. And also it's with a super generic name as well.
Yeah, and it's wild that this is the hill that people are willing to die on.
And
like, that's the character design. Like, there's I can make a character that looks exactly like that in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
My character in my first run of Baldur's Gate had a character who looked exactly like that.
The funniest thing is, as well, is that in Baldur's Gate, you could probably make them even more attractive.
Probably, yeah, and wear a better outfit.
Yeah. Like, that's the funny thing of this whole conversation, and I do kind of hope that, yeah, this is the conversation we inevitably had, because that's the conversation on this game at the moment. But I hope that the game isn't just remembered as this conversation. It does stand up for itself, and, like, as I say, I always want, like, decent games to succeed, and especially one where it's, like, roughly in the character action genre. I want more of that.
Yeah, that was really... Astral Chain was, like, the last big character action game I can remember, and that didn't do very well. Because it wasn't very good. And I actually am kind of glad that... So I looked at it and went, oh, this combat looks really bombastic. Does that mean it's like Final Fantasy 16, where it's just... It's all style, no substance? And then hearing you talk to me about the reviews of... No, it's like got a really supposedly in-depth like parry and stamina mechanic. I went, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard everyone when the demo dropped of, like, talking. Pretty much every person that I heard have an opinion on it was, oh, okay, well, it felt a little bit generic, and, like, I wasn't sure on the game. And then they dropped, like, a boss fight where you had more abilities from later in the game, and that felt really fucking good.
Okay, then. So that's got my attention. Like, that... Which is, that's me. The character design did not, like, grab me. Knowing that was a parry mechanic, now we're talking. So I would play like, as a... I'd play as a fucking block of... I would play as a sentient cube if you give me a good parry mechanic.
Yes, yeah.
I'd put tofu in there. Let's go.
That's the thing, isn't it? Of, like, Resident Evil is literally so much fun that it is fun to play as a giant block of tofu.
Yeah, and like that's a great example of like female character design that stands out. Like Jill Valentine, like the beret.
I was like, is tofu canonically female?
No, but it's like, just the designs of like women in that game. Like you've got Claire with like the motorcycle jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jill has the beret look, but then she has like the dress, like the Night on the Town Jill in the next game. You
Then
have
she has
Ashley
that
Graham.
fantastic Resident Evil 5 design with the blonde hair and the mind control device.
That's not great. Well, that's basically what that design is, isn't it? So it's the cat suit. It's the thing we joke about.
Catsuit,
The
yeah.
generic cat suit with her ass out.
They like that's what they did to Jill. They Eva-fied her.
They did. That's what we're going to call it. We call it the Resident Evil 5 Jill treatment.
God.
Like, how do you go from Resident Evil 2 and 3 Jill to Resident Evil 5?
I think for anyone that's unaware of those designs, like go and Google it because it
It's
really does show how much like a character like Eve can just look as bad as she does. Not as bad as like generic as she does. Like they made a really iconic looking character generic as fuck.
One of the single most iconic like female character designs in the history of the medium.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even that complicated. There's nothing too fancy about it. It's just she was one of the first.
Yes. Oh, but dear Carl, like we've been going on for a while about this subject.
We have indeed, yes.
So I think it's a good place to wrap it up because we're just at this point going in circles of like, damn it, Eve, stop looking so generic.
Well, that's the thing. I always feel the need to over clarify when it comes to this because it's like we did that video today where I opened up and said we're talking about this subject because it's an interesting subject. We're not. I understand we're two white guys on YouTube talking about this subject. We're not those kind of YouTubers.
Yeah.
We want to have a conversation about it. We don't want to yell at you about it.
Like, it is one of those things of just, it's like the oh, woe is me, but it's very easy to see, like, just two people that look like me and Carl on a YouTube video and make assumptions.
Yeah, it really is.
Which I
get it.
I understand, and it's fair enough, and I'm not being a little like crybaby about it. It's like, yeah, it's probably one of the most like minimal worries for anyone to ever have in their life.
You would not believe the amount of people who feel comfortable, at least like online and in messages and stuff, because I'm a white guy on YouTube who talks about nerd shit, who just assumes that I'm racist. Like when they did, I forget which one of the many like race swaps they've done in comics, because fuck it, let's mix up this character design. Every time something like that would happen in the heyday of Fact Fiend, I'd get a message of like, "You're really pissed off about this, right? You should make a video about it." And it's like, I'm not bothered by it. I'm curious to see this character from another writer's perspective as a fan of the character in the medium.
Yeah.
Oh, you're an SJW, and then it went to your woke and
then it just goes down that line. But yes, I would like to think, that most fans watching would know us both and hope that, wouldn't leap to those conclusions. But it's a new day on YouTube every day, and there's always new people watching ready to make those assumptions.
Yeah, and someone watching if they see a 2-hour podcast with this thumbnail, they're like, oh. I'm going to watch it and think that's like some knobheads talking about it. They're like, can't wait for them to talk about
it's the risky click, isn't it? Of like, is this podcast name meant to be in a joking way, or are they being serious? Maybe you should
change the podcast name as well.
Maybe I should.
I think you should change that podcast name.
But it might get people clicking. That's the point of a headline.
It might get people clicking, and we're going to be real mad and be like weird and misogynistic in the comments.
So if you're going to be weird and misogynistic in the comments, do that and like boost our analytics and spread our video further, share and like.
Don't do that, because people actually do that. And
no, I know. You're not allowed to joke because like someone will fucking do.
Yeah,
it's fine. We can just block them from the channel anyway. We have moderation power.
It's a thing that people actually do. Of like, they will just, like I said, reactionary culture war people who they have no stake in anything. They just throw their lot in with whoever will give them the most attention. It must be so weird to not have any principles, or at least not any that you're willing to stand by.
Yeah.
Or a depressing, horrifyingly just empty way to live your life.
Oh well. But thank you all for joining, and thank you all for being reasonable in chat, as I was very worried about like what kind of person might be making comments in this one. So
It's fun, right?
everyone be nice and not knobheads in the comments. No misogyny, or you will just get straight up blocked. We don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
Lucas, how dare you like stop me from like my free speech?
well, it's a private platform. It's not free
Yeah.
speech. It's like when people walk into like private businesses and like, you can't kick me out. Free speech. It's like, yeah, not in private spaces. I'm aware.
Yeah, it's like go stand on the street next to the guy who's screaming about the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you all for watching. We'll wrap it up there, and I hope everyone has a lovely day, evening, night, wherever you are, and just everyone be nice in the comments.